Hi, welcome everybody. Welcome to this webinar hosted by UNIFORM-Agri with two vets from Italy that will be presenting about udder health and fertility performance, how to control it with uniform software. First of all, let me explain a little bit how this works, how this platform works. You are all in mute, so your microphone doesn't work, but you can send questions, writing them, typing directly on the window you have from GoToWebinar. And my colleague Marilu and me, Almu, will read them, and at the end of the session, we will answer to your questions. Also, if you are not hearing what I'm saying right now, you can check your audio and check if you can change your headset or the computer audio so you can hear the whole session and you can follow what is being presented. And last but not least, we will send out some polls, some simple questions during the webinar. You can answer yes or no, and at the end, when you leave the webinar, you will have a survey. We will appreciate your feedback so we can improve for the next time. So before starting, we will present ourselves. From UNIFORM-Agri, there are two people. So Marilu, if you want to present yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Maria Luisa Cercello, but everyone is calling me Marilu, and I'm working for UNIFORM-Agri Italy.
And I'm Almudena, but you can say Almu. I'm from Spain, and I also work at UNIFORM-Agri. We are both vets, and we are inviting to this session also two vets. So please, Giovanni.
Hi to everyone.
And Cesare.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you all.
So now I'm going to change the presenter. We will switch off the cameras, but we are all here, and Giovanni will start presenting. So let's go.
Can I share my presentation?
Now you can.
Okay. 1 second. Do you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Giovanni Centonze. I'm a vet and I work as a udder health consultant for Italian dairy farms. Today, I will speak about my experience using UNIFORM-Agri by presenting you some results obtained in a dairy farm. This dairy farm has 230 brown Swiss lactating cows milked twice a day in a double 10 herringbone milking parlour, and their milk is used for the production of Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. This farm was facing an increased incidence in clinical mastitis in May and June 2020. And as you know, clinical mastitis is a great problem for dairy farms in terms of animal health, antibiotic consumption, and economic losses. So on the 13th of June 2020, I had my first visit on farm where I detected many critical points related to the milking area, and I discussed them with the producer. After that, we defined an action plan and we started to work on the 22nd of June 2020. The main action undertaken were the training of the milkers about what, why, and how to do from a theoretical and a practical point of view, the definition of the new milking routine, the regular check in the milking parlor and from PC using UNIFORM-Agri, and the retraining of the milker in order to allow the gradual implementation of their skills. Now I have a question to all the people who are listening to this presentation. So Almo, can you send the poll?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever seen a milking report? So you have few seconds to answer to this question. Do we have the result?
Not yet. 80% voted. So let's wait a little bit.
Okay. Let's wait. Okay.
Okay. So we have 78% say yes and 22% say no.
So it's a good result. It's better than my expectation. So 1 second. Okay. Do you see my presentation?
Yes, we see it.
Okay. So let's see together to some milking record. On the left, we have a milking report from the 13th of June 2020, the day of my first visit on farm, while on the right, we have a milking report from the 18th of January 2022, the day of my last visit on farm. In this screenshot, we have the main data from the last 9 milkings of each period. And as you can see, on my last visit on farm, we have an increased milk production compared to the before period. At the same time, we have an increased average milking time and a shorter average, an increased average milk flow rate. At the same time, we have a reduced average milking time and a reduced duration of the whole milking session. The main parameters I monitored over time were the milk collected in the first 2 minutes, the number of manual takeoffs, low flow period, average milk flow rate, and average milking time, and the duration of the milking session. So let's see together to these parameters. First parameters that is important to monitor is the amount of milk collected in the first 2 minutes. And as you can see, in the after period, we have 1.3 more kilos of milk collected in the first 2 minutes. This means better milk ejection, and this was possible thanks to a better pre-milking preparation of the cow. One of the most critical parameters at my first visit on farm was the number of manual takeoffs. In fact, on my first visit, we have 74 manual takeoff per milking, while on my last visit, we have only 17 manual takeoff per milking. I monitor this parameter thanks to this graph that we have on UNIFORM-Agri. On the horizontal axis, we have the time, while on the vertical axis, we have the number of manual takeoff. And each triangle represents a milking session. As you can see, initially, we have a high value of manual takeoff, and at some point, we have a drastic drop in this parameter. And that point is the 22nd of June 2020, the day we started the milking training. The same graph in January 2022 show how these parameters has remained low over time, and this was possible thanks to the regular check using UNIFORM-Agri and the regular retraining of the milker. With the implementation of the udder preparation and with the reduction of manual takeoff, we reduced the low flow period by about 28 seconds per milking. This means less stress on teeth tissue, and so we improve the protection of the teeth against bacterial invasion. Another parameter I monitored was the average milk flow rate, and as you can see, it has gone from 2 kilos per minute to 2.8 kilos per minute. The same parameters are represented in this graph. In red, we have the low flow period, and in blue, we have the average milk flow rate. For these parameters, we have the something. So, since the 22nd of June 2020, we have a clear reduction in low flow period and a simultaneous increase in the average milk flow rate. And these parameters as maintained at optimal level until January 2020. On the other hand, the average milking time was shorter on my last visit by 1.4 minutes per milking. The last parameter I monitored using UNIFORM-Agri was about the parlor performance, and this parameter is the total duration of the milking session. As you can see, on my first visit, we have a duration of the milking session of about 2 hours and 30 minutes, and on my last visit, I had a duration of 2 hours and 6 minutes. Faster milking, in addition to reduced stress on teeth tissue, means less standing time for the cow, more rest, and therefore increased milk production. But it also means less labor cost. To finish my presentation, I want to present you the result obtained on Udder Health. In this slide, we can see the numbers of clinical mastitis cases for each year. In red, you can see the first clinical mastitis cases, while in green, you can see the first clinical mastitis cases, while in red, you can see the repeated cases on the same cow. In 2019, we had 53 clinical mastitis cases. In 2020, we recorded 55 clinical mastitis cases, while in 2021, we recorded only 32 clinical mastitis cases. So, about clinical mastitis cases, we have 23 less clinical mastitis cases per year. And these values has gone from 55 clinical mastitis cases in 2020 to 32 clinical mastitis cases in 2021, with a 42% reduction. On the other hand, with regard to subclinical mastitis, the average herd somatic cell count has gone from 270,000 cells per ml in 2020 to 219,000 cells per ml in 2021, with a reduction of about 51,000 cells per ml. So at this point, how much money do you think has been saved by this dairy farm? Is this dairy farm more efficient? Is this dairy farm more sustainable? In conclusion, the message I would like to transfer is that if you don't measure, you can't understand what's going on. And if you don't understand, you can't control. So if you don't control, you can't improve. Thank you for the attention, and let's keep in touch.
Thanks, Giovanni. We have a question that I think you can reply pretty easily. So I will read it for you, and it says, what is the definition you used for clinical mastitis?
Okay, a clinical mastitis is when we have visible symptoms on the cow. These symptoms could be on the milk, so we can have abnormal milk. The symptoms could be on the udder, so we can have abnormal udder, swelling, pain, and other symptoms, or symptoms on the cow when we have sick cows. So clinical mastitis in general is when we have abnormal milk.
Thank you. More questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. So now we will move to Cesare's. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so now you are presenter.
Okay, can you see my screen?
We see your webcam right now.
Right now, okay. Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm trying to share my screen. Just 1 second, please. Okay. You cannot see my screen?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
I'm trying to, okay. It doesn't let me. I'm sorry all for the. I'm trying to show only the PowerPoint. Can you guide me?
Okay. Okay. You have opened the PowerPoint in presentation mode?
Not yet. Now, yes. Okay.
Okay. And then select in the drop down, you
I'm
select
selecting.
which screen.
Okay. And that's the one I selected, but it doesn't allow me. Okay. Now it should go, I think.
Now we see the PowerPoint. Yeah, now we see it in presentation mode. Yeah, that's it.
So good. Again, thank you for inviting me. I'm Cesare Paolucci. I'm a young veterinarian and consultant, and I work usually in northern Italy. And first thing first, I would like to thank the UNIFORM staff for inviting me to share my short experience with UNIFORM, and it's a pleasure to speak to you all. And I would love for the audience to interact with the questions and the polls so that we can learn together. So in this presentation, I would like to show you how I usually check a fertility program and the fertility of a herd with UNIFORM-Agri. And I need to make a premise. The data set that I will show you is learned by a farmer in northern Italy that did not follow directly, but I think it's a very good example of management of a difficult situation, and it's very good to show different things I usually look at during a visit on farm or with the consultant version of UNIFORM-Agri. You can still hear me, right?
Yeah, loud and clear, Cesare.
Very good. So I'd like to start the presentation with an open question for consultants, and I have my personal answer to this question, and I think that there is no right answer, but I have my answer, and I will share it by the end of the presentation. So the question is, what is the most important thing to consider in a dairy farm? What's the most important site to look at and to care about? So this is the general overview of the dairy farm we are looking at. It's a 300 cows herd, roughly 245 of which are lactating. This is a farm in northern Italy, near Po River, and this is an important information because here in Italy is usually very hot in summer and very cold in winter, but we have high humidity rates, and that is a factor that can affect fertility. So heat stress can be really a problem here. We'll skip on you're already seeing that there are some challenges here in this farm regarding udder health and milk quality. They are working on it, and so we'll focus more on the fertility sides and on the fertility parameters I usually look at. So I first look at the pregnancy rate, and here in this farm is 14. I would not consider it a bad result on average here, but it can be, I think, improved. A conception rate of 36, pregnancies at first time AI, so the first time that the cows are inseminated, they have a 38% conception rate and an overall 41% of insemination rate. So the first thing I would advise a young consultant like me is not to go to conclusion too soon, because I would like to see this value higher, and of course those two a little bit higher, but I need to look at the farms and the animals and the people that work in the farm before everything. So what do I do when I evaluate a fertility program? UNIFORM-Agri, I think, is a very useful software because it's very easy and comprehensive also to the farmer. So I go to fertility, and about fertility, I usually the first things I look at as a consultant are fertility KPIs and service analysis. In this particular farm, they started a synchronization protocol for the first time AI, which is the double off sync. So when I go to a farm as a consultant, I always look at the protocols, if they are correct or not. And what I mean by that is that I go into the plannings and to activity planning and to synchronization protocol, and I check that the days are right, that the drugs is right, the quantity is right. And as we can see about double off sync, I would like to see another shot of prostaglandin. So 24-day prostaglandin, 25th day, I would like to see another prostaglandin too. And I would love to ask the audience, do you use double off sync in the farms you work with? That would be very interesting. Almo, is the poll out?
Yes, it's running.
Okay.
Okay, now more than 60% voted, 60%, but let's wait a little bit, a few seconds more. Okay, so 62% of the people does not use double off sync, and 38 use double off sync.
Does not use, right? Okay.
So more people do not use double off sync than people who use it.
Perfect. Now you can see my presentation, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, double off sync is a fairly complicated protocol that requires a lot of attention to detail from the people that work into the farm, and it's not an easy protocol to put into activity. So another important part of UNIFORM I love to look at as a consultant is the service rate. So if we go basically here, the service analysis, and I like it to look at the first time that the cows are inseminated. So here we can see the history of this farm. The objective of the farm is actually to recover every cow as possible, and they do not want to cull cows for fertility problems. They want to get bigger. They want to recover all the cows. They had by the end of 2020 a change in management, and that was helpful, I would say. We can see that at the end of 2020, there were a lot of cows that were inseminated after 100 days in milk. I would consider that too much, and I also would like to check the data input of these inseminations. So as a consultant, first thing first, I would like to check the protocols and then the data input of the people that work into the farm. There are too many dots up here, and this graph is, by the way, we have time on the x-axis and then days in milk on the y-axis. But as time progressed, there was a change in management, and then we can already see far fewer cows that have been inseminated after 100 days in milk. And then by the start of the double offsing protocol, by February, March of 2021, we basically have no cows that are inseminated after 100 days in milk, but there is actually an average voluntary waiting period of 70 days, apart from 1 or 2 cows that could have been affected by pathologies. So I would not actually consider that. We can make a lot of considerations, looking at this graph. First thing is that they do not have different voluntary waiting periods for premiparous cows and pluriparous cows. So another question I would like to ask the audience is this one: do you advise different voluntary waiting periods for your farms based on parity? So the number of lactation.
Okay, we keep collecting responses.
Okay, should I go on?
Just a few seconds.
Okay.
Okay, so 60% of the audience that do recommend different voluntary waiting period based in the parity, and 40% doesn't recommend a different voluntary waiting period.
Okay, okay, that's a result I kind of expected. It's fairly common. We can see that in this graph also because we can also select the number of lactation that we are interested in. So as we can see here are the premiparous cows, and the average is always 70, and second lactation cows and third lactation cows. We can already see that there are basically there is only one voluntary waiting period. So I personally would advise at least 2 voluntary waiting periods. One a little bit longer for the premiparous cows, and I would say in between 78 to 82 days in milk, and 70 I think is just fine for the pluriparous cows. But again, this is my personal opinion, and I would adjust it to the farm, keeping in mind that you have to look at 2 different voluntary waiting periods is something more to ask for the farmer. And if they have a difficult situation like this farm, I would advise to keep things as simple as possible, trying to do the best job you can. So let's go on with the presentation. Another important graph and data I would look at is the conception rate. So in fertility KPIs, I would look at how actually is performing double offsing. And we see that the double offsing has a 33% conception rate in this particular herd. Now, I would consider it to be on the a little bit too low. I would like to be at least of 40, but in other farms it's not rare to see a 45 or 47 conception rate. Again, we'll have to analyze that during time, and we'll see maybe that in the hotter months this value drops, and so it can be affected by the weather. And we see that in many other things. We see, for example, that double ovsing started in April with a conception rate of 0, and we have always to adjust it and wait it for the number of cows that are being inseminated. So out of 3 cows, none has stayed pregnant. But going on with times, we can see that in May it has a 50% CR, and then it starts to get hot in June, and the double ovsing starts to drop even dramatically. So June, July, August, and September are usually the hotter days, hotter months in Italy. But I would not expect. This is a result that is not completely justified to me by the heat stress. I think it's also a management issue, and so I would investigate on that too. And I think it's important to put also some benchmarking or discuss benchmarking and set a little bit of expectation with the farmer. Maybe not too high of expectation, but you should know, the farmer, the owner, or the people that work in the farm, they should know where to aim at and what to expect if they work, for example, with double ovsing, as in this case. So I would like to ask the audience if you discuss benchmarking with the farmer or with the people that works into the farm.
Now is the poll is launched, and
thank you.
okay, so we have very clear results this time. 88% of the audience says yes, and 12% says no.
That's a very good result. Wait a minute, I'm trying to share my screen again. I don't know what happened now. Wait a minute.
Now we see it again. Now it's fine. Okay, now we see the app. Now we see PowerPoint.
Good. That's a very good statistic. Yes, I think that discussing benchmarking with the farmer is important. It's important to measure the results that we get to the farm with our actions, and I would advise to monitor it more than measure it. And what I mean by that is we can have days that are, or at least also weeks that are not going as we would like to, but we have to monitor the tendency through time. So an advice I would give a young consultant like me is not to focus only on a short period of time, but to take into consideration a long enough period of time. So going on with the presentation, another thing I would look at is basically also in fertility KPIs is the conception rate by number of inseminations. And this is a result that with a double ovsing I do not like. I would like actually would require the first insemination to be at least higher than the second and around at least 38 or more. This, to me, has to do with the missing prostaglandin shot and maybe also with management issues, or we can also investigate the transition cow. So if there are problems on transitions, I would check the nutrition. So there are lots of things that a graph like this can advise us. So this is another thing I really like about UNIFORM, is that it's very comprehensible and there are lots of graphs that you can share with the farmer. You can also see that there are a lot of cows inseminated after 6 times, so 6 times or more. And this is coherent with the objective of the farm. They do not want to cull any cow. Of course, those maybe won't be the most efficient cows of all, but still they do not want to send them away. And I would also say to monitor these results through time. So in January, we see that the first insemination has gone from 26.9 to 39 to 32 to 15. So we have highs and lows, and it's not a really consistent result. I would like always, I would really love to see first time AI after parturition higher than the other. And then we can see from October on that it seems to be the case. So from October, we have a 37 in the first insemination, then 33, 33, and then 38 and 25. Again, if we see a result like this, like 60, we have to adjust it and weigh it for the number of cows that have been inseminated in order to be statistically significant. This is the first graph that UNIFORM shows when to fertility KPIs, and it's another graph that we can look at. So we have days in milk, and then PR and insemination rate. I'd like to look at this graph, and here I would love to see more cows getting pregnant around here, and that would mean that the double ovsing is more effective, and a steeper curve. In this particular farm, and I'm not saying that it should be the case with all the farms, I'm not too worried about pregnancies here because it's in the aims of the farmer to keep all cows, but it's still a thing to keep in mind. So by increasing the efficiency of the fertility of the herd, we'll have in the next years, if everything goes well, a steeper curve and far less cows getting pregnant from now on. Other two things I would advise to consultants is to always adjust for the voluntary waiting periods. So here is 60, we should have put it to 70, seeing that the average voluntary waiting period is 70, and to consider a long enough period of time. We can also select, for example, the hotter months, the colder months, so we can see how maybe heat stress affect the results. And we can also see it here. We can see clearly that the hotter months have a conception rate that is on average lower than the other months. So I would ask the audience if heat stress is a challenge in your area too. That to me is very, very interesting.
Yes, this is the last question to the audience.
Yeah. Again, as said earlier, here in fertility, stress can be really a challenge, especially in some particular areas, but also an area of improvement. So we can advise the farmer.
And Cesare, is only in June, July, August, and September, or is it longer or shorter than that?
what the heat months?
The heat months, yeah.
It really actually depends on the year, but on average, I'd say June, July, August, and sometimes September. Sometimes September is colder, a little bit colder. Sometimes the heat stress begins earlier. It really depends on the year. For example, in 2003, there was it was a very hot year. Not that I was a consultant in 2003, but it would be interesting to see that from the
yes. So for the audience, 85% reply that yes, it is a challenge in their area, and only 15% reply that is not a challenge. So looks like everybody, more or less everybody has the same.
Okay, sorry, I am going through the presentation. I exited by mistake. Yeah, good. Yeah, that's a result I expected. And yeah, heat stress is really an enemy to fight, at least here. So my to-do list, I would like to leave you with a take-home message or a to-do list, whatever you want to call it. First thing first, I would actually consider what is the objective of they want to be more efficient, they want to focus on milk production. So you, as a consultant, you have to where to go. Then looking at fertility, I would adjust voluntary waiting period, monitor the results during a set time and discuss them with the owner. I would adjust benchmarks to the farm in the sense that I would not expect an increase in fertility by, I don't know, 10 points of conception rate from one day to the other. It's a slow process, and I would actually advise to have a step-by-step approach. And I would like to also advise that you should make tasks as easy as possible. And what I mean by that is that I think one of the strongest points of UNIFORM is that you can set tasks so that the people that work in the farm are have those tasks very clear and easy, and so they can perform well. And my answer to the initial question, which was what's the most important thing or side of the farm, of a dairy farm you should look at, is people. You are working with people, and as a consultant, you cannot stay 365 days a year, 24/7 in the farm. So you need to, I think this is always my personal opinion, but I think that you really should focus on instructing the people that work in the farm so that they can follow your instruction. And the easier the task is, the higher the chance that it would be done properly gets. So thank you very much for letting me share a little bit of my experience. It has been a pleasure to speak to you. So if there are any questions, I'll try to answer them as best as I can.
Thanks, Cesare. Yes, we now start with the questions. I think Marilu will start with that. So please, Marilu, go ahead.
Yeah, should I start with questions for Cesare or Giovanni? Maybe we go in the right order, then question for Giovanni. So, Giovanni, which measures were taken and how did you track them in mastitis management?
Okay, thanks for the question. The main measures undertaken were the measure I tell you on my presentation. So we made the training of the milkers. We established a new milking routine, and after we check in a regular way. The check of the milking was done using UNIFORM-Agri in a weekly basis. The training of the milker was done on an irregular basis. So when I made visit on farm, at the same time I trained the milkers, and every month I analyze the other health data. So data from DHI, data from clinical mastitis, data from milking, and also from milkers.
Okay, thanks, Giovanni. So another question for Giovanni. Did somatic cell count drop on all cows over the whole herd with the change in milking management, or was it solely due to the fact that there were less new clinical cases of mastitis?
I don't have the total knowledge to answer to this question, but I can see that surely when we have a clinical mastitis, we have an increased somatic cell count of the cow to millions of somatic cell count. So when a cow has clinical mastitis, her somatic cell count goes up for at least 1 to 2 weeks. So if we have a clinical mastitis after the finish of the clinical symptoms, we could have an evolution to subclinical mastitis. So we could have subclinical mastitis with long-term somatic cell count stay high. So it could be possible that with the reduction of clinical mastitis, we reduce also subclinical mastitis and somatic cell count.
Okay, thanks a lot. Another question for you, Giovanni. Giovanni, have you only trained the milkers and the milking routine, or have you trained on treatment for other health too?
Okay, the training of the milker started from the knowledge about mastitis, because many milkers don't know why cows develop mastitis. So the training was started from this knowledge. After we trained them on the milking routine, and we trained them on every procedure on cow. So therapy, every treatment, milking routine, and each thing that is related to other health.
Okay, thanks a lot. Then another question for you. How often, every week, months, etc., do you track changes in herd performance after certain changes are made in milking or vet protocol in regard to mastitis?
Okay, thanks. As I said, I made weekly check with UNIFORM-Agri and monthly check on farm. So a monthly check on the total worth of mastitis. So data from DHI, data from recorded clinical cases, and data from the environment and milking. So I made a weekly check from PC and monthly check in farm.
Thanks a lot, Giovanni. Another question. What are the norms, aims of the parameters you have presented and improved? Are they different for Swiss Holstein breed?
Yes, the benchmark for these parameters could be different from breeds, or could be different on the base of the number of milking we have in a dairy farm in a day. So the general benchmark are about about the parameter I mentioned, such as the milk collected in the first 2 minutes. This parameter has to be greater than 15% or 7 kilos. Another parameter I could mention is low flow period. It has to be less than 10% or less than 30 seconds in low flow for each milking. But they can have some other variable that we can talk about from email or on Facebook, LinkedIn, and other social media if you are interested in this argument.
Okay, thanks, Giovanni. Last question for you. Congratulations on your presentation, Giovanni. I would like to know if on the farms you if on the farms you work find a lot of problems in milking equipment.
Yes, there were and there are still today some problems related to milking equipment. The main problem is about unit alignment, but these depend on the milking parlor conformation. So we can delete it, but surely we can improve it in the future times.
Okay, thanks a lot, Giovanni. Now there's some question for Cesare. Please, Almo.
Yes, so Cesare, for you, we have a question that says, from which day do you start double off-sync? And what are the most popular off-sync protocols used in Italy? What is the trend?
Okay, so yeah, I can answer for the farms I've been working in. So it's not global knowledge of all the farms in Italy, but yeah. So when would I start double off-sync? That depends on the voluntary waiting period we want to set. So given that the double off-sync is usually 27 days long, if I'm not mistaken, but it should be that long, I would adjust it so that the voluntary waiting period for primiparous cows is about 78 to 82 days on average, and in the pluriparous cows, so from the second lactation on, from 68 to 72 days, so around those ranges. And I would still consider to adjust those voluntary waiting periods to the farm. So if we have enough data, and if the data is reliable, and if the people that work into the farm have a really high attention to detail, we can set some differences. But I'd say that those two are the ranges. What are the most used protocols in Italy? It depends on the farm. It depends if they have activity monitoring, so maybe pedometer. Some farms use a combined approach. So we have a pre-synchronization protocol like pre-sync, and then they have a week or two of estrus detection, and then they go into off-sync. But I'd say that I often see some short protocols like short sync or off sync that are usually used after gynecology from a veterinarian, and other protocols like double off sync, G6G, or pre-sync off sync are used too. I don't know in how many farms, honestly, but I think that those are the main protocols that are used in Italy.
Okay, thank you. Another question for you, Cesare, is do you have different voluntary waiting periods based on cow yield? And then the person who sent the question says, I find high yielding cows need to be in calf before they have been at peak yield for too long, otherwise conception rates suffer. So the cows more than 50 liters production need to be served sooner. What is your opinion about this?
So that's a very good question. High producing cows often, since they have also a very fast metabolism, not only because they of course have to produce a lot of milk, they also disrupt hormones quickly. So if that's, at least in my experience, those are often the cows that are difficult to get pregnant. So if I didn't understand if the question was to shorten the period so that you can inseminate them sooner, or can you repeat?
Yes, that was it. That cows that produce more than 50 kilograms of milk are servied sooner than others.
Again, I would consider the farm history about that. On average, I'd say that's a really good question. On average, I'd say that you should give the higher chance of getting pregnant to those cows, and that could be in some farms I know sooner than the other cows. In some other farms, there is that I know there is not a very big difference. But yeah, I think I would advise to start to inseminate them earlier, always given that they are in good health and they did a transition period, a very good transition period. And yeah, and that's one of the I think one of the reasons why usually in different studies there is a shorter voluntary waiting periods for parity, because usually cows that are older produce a little bit more. But again, there are some studies out there, and I would be glad to study a little bit more and share it with you, maybe via LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. I'd like to. That's a very good question. Thank you very much.
Thanks. We have another one for you, Cesare. What are the common feed additive solutions to manage heat stress in Italy?
What are, sorry, can you repeat the feed additive?
Feed additives to manage heat stress. Do you use any, or are you aware that farms use any feed additives?
That's a very good question, but in all honesty, I cannot answer it. And there are a lot of nutritionists that would be happy to. For sure, I think that one of the key areas of to look at is the transition period. They have to be in the best health possible at the first time that they are inseminated. That's in my opinion. Also because from a management standpoint, the sooner you get the cows pregnant, the less you have to stay focused on them and to keep breeding them. So it's more work at the beginning and less work afterwards. But feed additives, that's a question for a nutritionist. I'm not a nutritionist. That's again, that's a really good question, and I would be happy to study more about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Cesare. It's a very good answer. You know what you know.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know. I want to. I'd like to deepen my knowledge about it, but yeah, I cannot answer this question.
Yeah. So we have a last question. We are right on time, and it's for Giovanni. And they ask about the case you presented. Did they make adjustments to the milking parlor, liners, pulsation curve, or anything else?
No, anything else. No adjustment on the milking equipment, only on the way we use it.
Okay, so that was it. Marilu, are you? Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, here I am.
Okay, so that was last question. If you have any other question to those two great guys with that did these great presentations, you can send it to us, to anyone from UNIFORM that you are in contact with, and we will forward it to them. So you can just send an email to the UNIFORM-Agri team and we will reply to it. So thanks both of you, Giovanni and Cesare, for collaborating. And thanks to everybody who was at the other side of the screen listening.
Thanks a lot to everyone.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks. Bye.